Today, let's turn in our Bibles to Matthew chapter 18. So today, this is going to be a more fast-paced, shorter video than usual. There is a major hurricane headed towards me, and I do not have a lot of time to prepare, and I'm trying to get a video done and notes and everything like that, so it's been pretty crazy and hectic. So I apologize if this video comes out too short or anything like that. Just trying to get everything done. I figured I'd put something together real quick for this chapter. So let's get started. At the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? So this is a typical human problem. Pride, who's going to be the greatest, and I'm sure each disciple thought they were going to be the greatest in the kingdom. They were probably all waiting for Jesus' answer, like, oh, is it going to be Peter, is it going to be John? I'm sure they were all eager to hear his response to who's going to be the greatest. So it's a typical human problem. And as you recall in Matthew chapter 20, or not recall, we're going to get there in the future, chapter 20, verse 20, James and John, the son of Zebedee, their mother, came to Jesus, and she asked them that Jesus would grant them the honor for her sons to sit on each side, on his right and left. And so it's a typical problem. People are always wanting to be the greatest, even today. But, however, Jesus taught that the way up was down. If you want to be the greatest, be humble. He gives grace to the humble. You exalt yourself, you'll be abased. If you abase yourself, you'll be exalted. And Jesus called a little child unto him, and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So Jesus was saying, or he urged his disciples to adopt childlike humility, and the desire to be the greatest in the kingdom displayed a pride that was inconsistent with genuine discipleship. And he said, Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoso shall receive one such little child in my name receiveth me. And Jesus urged kind and gracious treatment of children by teaching that they should regard a child as they would regard him. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. And these millstones over in Israel, they're not something small as you would think. They are very huge, large round stones, and they actually turned by a donkey. And drowning was a particularly horrifying way to die in the mindset of first century Jews, because Israel was not a seafaring nation. And this also made me think about evolutionists today and teachers. They're always trying to destroy the faith of little ones, like in secular schools and public schools and things like that. I mean, they are taught from a very young age, like evolution. There is no God. We all came from an amoeba, a dot of nothing, exploded millions of years ago. That's what's basically being taught today, even very, very young. You pick up a children's book, and say like a dinosaur book or something, the first sentence is going to say millions and millions of years ago, no God involved or anything. So Jesus warned against this kind of teachings, because when a child starts believing that and gets drawn away from God, it was better for that person to have a millstone hanging about their neck and drown in the depth of the sea. And he said, Woe unto the world because of offenses, for it must need that offenses come. So there's no way you can escape offenses. You're always going to offend somebody. But woe to that man by whom the offense cometh. Wherefore, if thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut them off, and cast them from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life halt or maimed, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast thine eye offend thee, pluck it out, and cast it from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life with one eye, rather than having two eyes to be cast into hellfire. And as you remember in Matthew chapter 5, verse 29, Jesus said the same thing regarding plucking your eye out if it offends you. And as we've said, this is not literal. You know, if you still have your other hand or eye to sin with. So it's not literal, it's just shock value. That it's better to enter into life maimed than to be eternally lost. Because the suffering of life is, like 100 years that you live, but then after you die, the suffering is eternal, it's never ending. And regarding hell, Jesus spoke more about hell than any prophet or anybody in the Bible combined. And the word for hell here is Gehenna, and it refers to the everlasting place of torment, kind of like the lake of fire. And it's an interesting study if you want to do some research on your own about the different names and types of hell. You know, you have Sheol, Hades, Gehenna, Tartarus, Abuso. There's so many different ones that it's an interesting study if you want to take the time to go out of the way and look at the different types of hell and names for them, so you can have an extra bonus points for your study to look those up. And Jesus said, "Take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones, for I say unto you, that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven." And Daniel chapter 10, verse 10 through 14 teaches that angels are assigned to represent and protect the nations. And here also Jesus appears to teach that angels are assigned to represent believers to God. You know, kind of like guardian angels. People are assigned guardian angels. It says their angels do always behold the face. And he said, "For the Son of Man is come to save that which is lost." Then he starts a parable about a lost sheep. And he said, "How think ye? What do you think about this? If a man have 100 sheep, and one of them be gone astray, doth he not leave the 99, and go into the mountains, and seeketh that which is gone astray? And if it so be that he find it, verily I say unto you, he rejoiceth more of that sheep than of the 99 which went not astray. Even so, it is not the will of your Father which is in heaven, that one of these little ones should perish." So the shepherd gets all the sheep in, he sees one's missing, and he goes out and finds it and rejoices over it. So God, likewise, is not willing that any of us should perish, but that everybody should come to him. And there's great rejoicing when you do. Verse 15. And now he's going to start teaching about discipline within the church in the next few verses. "Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee 1 or 2 or more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established." So first, you go to your brother, and you tell them their fault. If they don't hear you, then you come back with more people. Because some people might lie or misinterpret what you said. You know, they might have a grudge against you, and they might lie. Or they might just honestly not get what you said. So if you do go back to them, it's best to have someone with you as a witness, so they can say, well, that person didn't say that, or they're lying. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it to the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican. So he's no longer part of the church, he's excommunicated. So you go to him. If you don't listen, bring more people with you. If you still don't listen, then you can excommunicate them from the church if they won't listen to the church. So basic church discipline. "Verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." So these are heavenly powers that are given to people in the church. And we can bind evil spirits, and we can lose the Spirit of God unto the world. Again I say unto you, that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. For where two or three are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times. And this may seem a little, like stingy, like, well, 7 times. But this standard was generous considering the fact that some rabbis required their students to forgive offenders only 3 times. And Jesus' point was that forgiveness should be unlimited when true repentance is present. And Jesus said unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. And that last point was supposed to go with that. So Jesus was saying that forgiveness should be unlimited when he said 70 times 7. And he figured you would lose count by then. If you forgive them 400 times, you're not going to get to 449 times. You'll forget by then. And he said, therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him which owed him 10,000 talents. And this was approximately 6,000 days' wage. And the sum represents the sinner's hopeless debt to God. But forasmuch as he had not to pay, his Lord commanded him to be sold, and his wife and children, and all that he had, in payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. Then the Lord of that servant was moved with compassion, and loosed him, and forgave him the debt. But the same servant went out, and found one of his fellow servants which owed him 100 pence. And 100 pence was equivalent to 3 months of a wage, so very less. And the contrast between the 10,000 talents and 100 denarii shows that the sins of others against us are trivial in comparison to the enormity of our own sins against God. And he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me that thou owest. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet and besought him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. So, same situation as the other servant was in, same words. But he would not forgive the servant, but went and cast him into prison till he should pay the debt. So when the fellow servants saw what was done, they were very sorry, and came and told unto their Lord all that was done. Then his Lord, after that he had called him, said unto him, O thou wicked servant, I forgave thee all that debt, because thou desirest me, or asked me. Shouldest not thou have also compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I had pity on thee? And as you recall in Ephesians 4:32, it says, And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you. And his Lord was wroth, and delivered him to the tormentors, till he should pay all that was due unto him. And since God has shown believers such great mercy by pardoning their sins, they should in turn sincerely forgive the sins of others. The debtor's torture would continue until the debt was paid in full, and since the debt could not possibly be repaid, the torture symbolizes eternal judgment. So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you, if ye from your hearts forgive not every one his brother their trespasses. So we see here that forgiveness is not an option. It is a command. We are commanded to forgive one another, because the whole point of the parable was that we have an enormous debt to pay to God that can never be repaid. But God sent Jesus to pay for it all, and he forgave us of the debt. And so likewise, when we have somebody, who we're angry with, or who suppose somebody offended us or did this or that to us and we just keep holding on to that, it's not right for us not to forgive that person, since God paid and forgave an enormous debt to us. So we should forget all the little trivial things that, we hold against people, because they're nothing compared to what we owed God. And that will conclude it for Matthew chapter 18. Like I said, this was a more fast-paced video. This is being pre-recorded before Hurricane Milton comes at me. So, I know you all be praying. I hope everything turns out okay. I don't know if next week there'll be a video. There should be. I don't know how long I'm going to be without power. I'm assuming power is going to be out for quite a while. So, I don't know. I'll definitely give an update on the next week. If there's not a video, I'll still do like a little update video or something. We'll see. So yeah. And also I'll be praying for everybody else who's in the path of the hurricane. And I hope you all enjoyed this Bible study. And hopefully I will see you all next week for Matthew chapter 19.